hard to regain our religious freedom and the civil rights of Native people here in the United States. We have incorporated the use of the sweat lodge to serve Native Americans who are incarcerated, those who are seeking sobriety, and others in need of spiritual healing and positive medicine. We conduct our lodges safely by allowing proper safety rules and protocol according to traditional and the rituals of the ceremony. James Ray and other New Age leaders who usurp Native American traditions and ceremonies are extremely dangerous, not only to their followers and their paying customers, but also to the heart and the soul of Native people who have recently and relatively have just regained the right to freely and legally practice their religion in the United States. Keep this fact in mind as you consider the criminality of Ray and his minions. Rather than perceive any problem with the safety of the sweat lodge ceremony or Native American religious freedom in the United States now and in the future. Native people are actively committed to participate in society as good neighbors and welcome those who wish to learn more about our culture and those who then consult a legitimate Native American leader, elder, medicine man or woman, those who are recognized as having the right and responsibility passed down to them. We indigenous Americans have fought very hard to regain our spiritual and religious freedom in the United States ever since the first ghost dance ceremonies of the late 1870s. The ghost dance movement sparked alarm in Washington, which led to Congress extending direct federal jurisdiction hand over to the Army regiments to undermine traditional tribal leadership and prevent Indian gatherings for the religious ceremonies. In 1978, after a long and hard and difficult battle with the federal government and Congress, new legislation was passed ensuring the rights of the Native Americans to practice their religion without hindrance or infringement from the United States government, including the use of the sweat lodge by the Native American community, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, AFRA of 1978 was a major milestone in establishment of the Native American civil rights to practice and to regain our religion. Further legislation was passed 15 years later, the Native American Free Exercise of Religion Act of 1993. Section 2 policy states, "It is the policy of the United States in furtherance of the policy established in the Joint Resolution entitled Joint Resolution American Indian Religious Freedom, approved August 11, 1978, USC 1996, to protect and preserve the inherent right of Native Americans to believe, to practice, and to exercise his or her traditional religion, including but not limited access to any Native American religious site, use and possession of sacred items, and the freedom to worship through their ceremonies and traditional rites." The sweat lodge ceremony represents only one of the Native American religious ceremonies that our communities have struggled to regain the right to practice with dignity, honor, and respect. Respect for our elders, respect for our traditions. It is in the light that we take great offense to the likes of James Ray and the other New Age pretenders who think they can conduct our ceremonies without authorization, without sanction, or without endorsement or the proper training or any consultation with Native American or the Native American community. Such unauthorized persons said to insult, add insult to injury by charging outrageous and exorbitant amounts of money to their unsuspecting and vulnerable individuals ceremony has defined specific protocols that we as Native people must follow and observe closely to maintain and preserve the dignity and the sacredness and the sacred aspects of the ceremony, while respecting the participants whether they are Indian or whether they are non-Indian. The protocol includes the proper preparation of the sweat lodge site and the participants of the sweat lodge ceremony. Gray and many others in the New Age community have taken the sacred ceremony and disregarded the spiritual and physical responsibilities that come with leading that ceremony. Native American elders and medicine people have learned the traditional protocol of building a sweat lodge correctly, conducting the ceremony safely. Sweat lodge frames are made small with intimate ceremonial structure for a limited amount of people. Gray decided it was appropriate to include 55 to 65 people in one sweat lodge. Despite the obvious hazards of so many people in a tightly confined and enclosed space. If it was Native American people, we would have at least 3 or 4 sweat lodges, asking 3 or 4 sweat lodge leaders to come and to perform and conduct the ceremony. There have been many documented reports of non-Indians using dangerous propane and other gases to heat the rocks for the sweat lodge, which can be very dangerous to the participants. Whether it's the fumes or the higher heat generated by these gases, the stones must be selected carefully, and they must be adhered to the specific standards of what the ceremony calls for. In some areas where volcanic rocks are unavailable, the ceremony would not take place until those rocks could be obtained. Please take a more truthful and respectful attitude in Indian country in these United States. On behalf of the American Indian Movement, I would like to state that these deaths were unwarranted. They did not have to happen. This appalls Indians across America, our traditional people,